What's up, everybody? Yeah, welcome to the Mike Dolce Show. Very excited for today's episode. We have a friend of mine, social media friends, but friends, of course, as we've continued on through the years. And I'm happy to bring her to you guys. I'm just moving some screens around right now. We got all sorts of technology happening in the background. All right, there we go. So, we are speaking today with IFBB professional athlete. We're going to speak about her career. Her name is Hana Devore. Now, Hana is a professional bodybuilder and fitness coach specializing in lifestyle coaching, biohacking, and nutrition optimization. There's a lot going on here that I do want to jump in and speak about with you guys. But without further ado, let's get her on board. Hey. Did I say it wrong again? Hana.
You said it right.
I said it right. All right. Yeah. I always kind of like struggle with such things. I got all sorts of technology going on here in the background, and I'm trying. I got microphones and audio going on, and members of our channel, they certainly know that we've been upgrading big time. Tripods moving around.
I love the visuals that we have here. We have you. We've got me. In the image of you doing this right when we connected, I almost didn't say anything because I was like, is this like a thing where he marks when I'm not supposed to be talking?
Right? Like, is that actually, that's funny because, you can't tell nowadays, what's live, what's real. And I certainly don't know what I'm doing over here. I am literally like a caveman that's burning himself on fire, like perpetually.
Oh, so that's me too. I mean, I'm sure I'm going to answer, I don't know, or it depends to like most of your questions.
Oh, that'll
I like just to say I don't know. I feel like more people need to say I don't know sometimes.
That is the truth. And as I'm about to say I don't know here, I'm going to change something on one of the screens. It's not you, it is me. This one right here. Boom. I want to delete that broadcast and one other's here. And there we go. All right, that's what I'm talking about. All right, so now we are back up and running, and this is live, clearly, ladies and gentlemen, which is why our badged up members on the Dolce Diet YouTube channel, well, you have access to live content such as this. You can engage in real time. Feel free to ask any questions as we continue on. We'll stop a few times during the interview, but also at the very end and drill down deeper because I know this is going to be interesting conversation. I'm excited to have you on. And now you and I have been speaking for probably over a year about getting you on the show, and just timing didn't work out, right?
Yeah, we're busy. That's cool.
We're busy. You're busy. You're crazy busy. And
you too.
I try. I make it up. It's all. I pretend to be super busy here. It's amazing. But again, what cameras and microphones can do for us. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to just, before we get to being a professional athlete, but professional bodybuilder, physique competitor, fitness athlete, bikini athlete, which title would you choose?
So technically I'm a professional bodybuilder, but that's weird to say because I'm relatively tiny. So there are different levels or divisions in bodybuilding. I historically have competed in the bikini division, which is going to be the smallest in terms of muscularity. We are the girls in the sparkly suits and the heels, who are typically a bit smaller in terms of muscularity, but they are looking for that X frame. They're looking for the delts into the small waist, into those big glutes. So that's been my category as a professional bikini competitor. Oh no, Instagram.
And well, your Instagram is great. And, won't keep that up the whole time, but as you were talking, if I could get rid of some of these screens here, there we go. More of the kind of like the physique and frame. I mean, this clearly is progress photos, if you will. And I love that you keep everyone and yourself up to date, like keeping you accountable, but giving insight into what you've been up to. And that's kind of the frame. And I will say, maybe this one is a really good shot for everyone watching. I will say that the bikini physique for female athletes is the most aspirational, in that most women who see a bikini competitor, they say, oh, like,
I'd
like to look like that.
Yeah, that's what I'd like to look like on a beach, right?
Yes.
It's not really what I'd like to feel like, because I always tell people the physique that you see, like in the bottom right corner here, we have the icon of me competing.
Yes.
That is a one-day physique. And I like to remind people of that. That's a moment in time. No one looks like that year round. I mean, if they do, they're not.
Liver King does.
Liver King. He does a whole lot of things I don't do. That's okay.
Of course he does.
But yeah, that is simply, you know, a moment in time, but it's still, yeah, it's aspirational, but also it's doable for a lot of people. It's going to be a bigger jump if I want to compete if I wanted to compete in women's physique, or even figure, or gosh, at this point, even wellness. Wellness is a new division that's just above, I guess you could say, above bikini in terms of muscularity, but it's very different. It's a different kind of shape. Right. But if I wanted to commit to any other division, it would be a huge life change, not only in how I look on stage and how I eat and how I train, but how I just walk around. We call it like our off season. How are you going to just walk around and live most of your day-to-day life? That's what has to be considered with bodybuilding, because we cut down to get shredded, which means we have to walk around bigger. So very similar to MMA, very similar to UFC. You know, those guys aren't walking around at that weight year round. Right. They have to get there. But for the most part, they like to feel good. They want to feel healthy. They want to be able to train and be, you know, on point all year. So they're going to be a bit heavier and have a bit more fuel in their system in their, what we call off season.
Yep. And I mean, most of this interview, I want to talk about the off-season walk around, but also the prep. I want to get to the diet, the training, the supplements, and also the drug use that is at the high level, which we all know about, but it's great to have you that you can shed some insight. But before we get to that, I wanted to get a little bit more about you. So kind of briefly, let's all go all the way back to the very early days. You as a young girl growing up. Give me just a little insight. Where did you grow up? What was your home life like? And kind of some early influences.
Sure. Gosh. So I'm from LA. I lived there for a good portion of my life, and then I bounced around for my career for a bit. I've lived in Seattle. I actually now live in New York, but I lived in Seattle and also San Francisco for different jobs. But yeah, I grew up in LA. My dad was, for the most part, a single dad. He's amazing, and he's really athletic and really in tune with nutrition. And I feel like, looking back, the things that he was teaching me when I was just a kid are the things that are now becoming popular in nutrition. He was telling me about fiber. We were eating kale when I was a kid.
Oh, all right.
You know, we were eating, for the most part, he was mostly vegetarian, but I guess I would call him a pescatarian. Okay. And he was running hills. We lived really close to where Rogan used to live in LA, where he used to run Marshall, his dog.
Yeah, okay.
My dad used to run our dogs too. And he used to like run into mountain lions all the time.
Terrifying.
That's LA for you. There's mountain lions everywhere.
True, of course.
But yeah, I had a really, really cool role model. And from probably 10 years old on, he was telling me girls should lift weights. And he has always really appreciated athletic looking women too. So a lot of, you know, being raised by him probably influenced where I'm at now. I didn't get into bodybuilding until much later, in my early to mid 20s. So I think for a long time I wasn't listening to him when he told me to lift weights. You know, when I was like in my teens, I should have been. I actually kind of wish that I was in the gym at that time, because the confidence that you get from that is just amazing as a young girl.
Yeah. Yep. And briefly, what happened to mom and dad? What happened to marriage? I'm very curious about inside the home. You know, what happened?
You like to get into it, don't you?
I want to know about you, because it matters, because
it does matter.
Our life is our story. I had a very terrible childhood, one could say, broken home, extreme poverty, sadness everywhere. But that's my strength.
That make you who you are, though.
That's right? It. So I think that because we can talk macros. I'm so tired of chicken breasts and broccoli conversations. I want to learn more about you, because then I think that adds a lot more weight to the stories that we will be talking about in a few minutes.
Yeah, I think that's smart. And so much, obviously so much of our childhood determines just who we're going to be many years down the road. I respect that adversity, that you mentioned. I respect people who have been through shit, who've been through hell and come out stronger. I actually didn't have, although I speak very highly of my dad, I didn't have the best childhood. He's actually, he is a record producer. He works with a lot of classic rock bands. And there were times when he was touring or in the studio. And unfortunately, I've never even said this publicly on Instagram or anywhere, but my mom was really, really abusive. So my dad would leave, didn't know that she was pretty horrible until they ended up splitting when I was 13. So I'm also an only child, which I think is interesting. I think it's interesting that I ended up in a sport that, although you can join a team, you don't compete really as a team. It's really an individual sport. Going into the gym and lifting weights, we do alone. It's very, kind of introspective. I put my headphones in. I like to be alone. I think that a lot of that comes from being an only child. Yeah. And then I think that, I'm also currently working on balancing masculinity and femininity, as I realized that I was a bit out of alignment. Some of that coming from, I was mostly raised by a guy. When I was little, I was like skateboarding, snowboarding, dressing like a boy, hanging with the guys, Yeah. So I ended up in a sport that, although I might look sparkly and pretty on stage, I would still call it kind of a masculine sport. I got to go in there and lift weights with the dudes in the weight room, but I'm really comfortable with it, possibly because of how my dad raised me, and because of that masculinity that I do still have.
Sure. And did you play any sports growing up, or any other activities, arts, music, things like that?
I was involved in music. I played some various instruments just because my dad was so involved in music. So music is really important to me. Of course, now I'm engaged to a guitar player.
Go figure.
Of course. Music is really important to me. But when I was young, I was on a snowboarding team, and then I actually played golf for a while. My dad's a golfer, so I just kind of grew up on it. But no, I actually wouldn't consider myself to be super athletic, though.
Gotcha. What about the academic side? Did you like school, not like school, do what you had to get through?
Kind of hated it when I was younger, but a lot of that I think was the turmoil that was going on with my parents, which was like middle school time. So it just middle school and high school. I just don't want to go back and do that again.
I hear that.
But I really enjoyed college. Actually, I got a marketing degree.
Okay.
I do work in marketing. I have a day job in addition to coaching and doing all the fitness stuff. I actually work in marketing in the food industry.
All right. Yeah. And we've spoken about that before.
Yeah.
Now, when kind of getting out of childhood, when did you actually leave the house? Did you leave the house for college?
Yeah. Yep. So my dad actually ended up, he got so sick of LA music industry craziness, which he did for like 40 years. So he was like, fuck this. I'm going to buy a ranch in Montana. So we went up to Montana.
Get that.
Big change. I was 18. I'm an 18-year-old girl from LA. Moved to a small town in Montana. Like a movie could have been written about this.
Yellowstone?
It was basically, except my dad's not quite that conniving.
Not yet. Yeah.
So I actually ended up going to the University of Montana in Missoula.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Went there for a couple of years. I did my best, and I got to go back to California.
Yeah.
So I finished school back in California.
Okay. And then now leaving college, did you ever go back home, or did you just kind of continue on into career in life?
Yeah, I took a year off. My dad ended up remarrying. He found a great lady.
Awesome.
And I hate to be a downer with all the shit we're talking about with our childhood and all of this, but shortly after he met her and got married, she ended up getting cancer. So I left school for about, I think I took about a semester off to take care of her. She passed away, which, by the way, I feel like there's a connection there too in going through something health related with someone really important to you.
Yeah.
And going through something, that could be influenced by our diet and our lifestyle habits, all of that. And then I seeing her pass away, I feel like really influenced a lot of my health journey, and probably influenced the way that I eat today, because it's like, wow, I've seen it. Yeah. I've seen the worst of it. And I want to try to not let that happen to me. I think she was 52 and she died of lung cancer. So that was tough, but that was a really good kind of wake up call for me. I was about 20 years old.
Okay.
And so I ended up hanging out with my dad for a while, kind of taking care of him. And then eventually, when I felt like he was okay and ready for me to kind of go back to school and finish it up, I took off. But my dad and I are still, we're really close. We're like best friends.
He's still out in Montana?
He actually ended up of all places. He went back to LA.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Went the wrong way. You're supposed to come back east.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So I was just out in LA hanging out with him. It's always good to see him.
Cool. All right. So now, when did you start getting that itch to, weightlifting? Because typically you usually start lifting weights. It makes you feel good. And then you start entering into maybe the thoughts of competition. How did it work for you?
Yeah. So kind of similar to that. So I was living in Northern California, and I was working from home. One of the first job that I got right out of college was remote. I was the director of marketing for a wine company that was actually based on the East Coast. So I would work on East Coast hours, would finish up my day. I haven't seen people. So there was a little gym down the street, little rinky dink, kind of a gym for older people. Yeah. And I thought, well, that'd be good because I can just walk there, get a little afternoon workout, walk home. And so I started working out there, and I realized I was kind of all alone, or there would be like a couple of older folks in the corner, doing some cardio, but I really had the place to myself for the most part. Around that time, I think I got on Instagram. I had my first Instagram account, which was not fitness related at all. It was just, pictures of my life. I wasn't really into fitness. But I started to see some of these women who looked amazing, like Amanda Latona, Jamie Eason, some of my early, they were like motivation for me early on. I thought that they were just amazing, but I didn't understand what they were doing. I'm like, do I need to go do more cardio? Do I need to be running? And I realized that they were lifting weights.
Gotcha. So
I said, okay, I got to get into this. I have to try it. And since there was no one in the gym, I figured I could look stupid. It was okay. I wasn't intimidated. I could pick up a weight, and even if I did something wrong, it wasn't going to be a big deal because no one was watching me. So the cool thing was that the intimidation factor was taken out of the equation. So I had that as kind of an advantage there. I started lifting, and of course, like you said, my body just immediately responded very well because it was something that was so new.
Yep.
So from there, these were the days of bodybuilding.com. All we had was bodybuilding.com.
And Jamie Eason was all over bodybuilding.com, by the way, right?
All over it. And that was where I was getting all my information. And I got so into it, I would lay in bed and just read bodybuilding articles like for hours. Yep. And I would look at recipes, and I started to follow a lot of Jamie's recipes. And then, like you said, just for fun, one day I said, I'm going to go check out one of those competitions and just check it out. And I ended up meeting my now coach, Jamie DeBernard. She's a figure Olympian. And she was just amazing. We talked for 2 hours.
Wow.
She took a look at me and she was like, you look really good. I think that you can compete pretty soon. So she put me on stage about 2 weeks later at the San Jose Championships, and I won it.
Wow.
And
after how many years of training?
2.
Okay. That's all right. Big deal.
2. Yeah. But I was really dedicated to the nutrition aspect of it, and really all of it. Just like, whenever you jump into something head first, you just soak it all in.
Yep.
So I did really well. And from there, we went straight to nationals. I went to Vegas. It was so cool in Vegas at nationals. I walked out on stage and I looked down and Amanda Latona was sitting right there looking at me. And I was such a fangirl, you know, but that was like, she was one of my initial reasons for even lifting weights. And she was looking at me and smiling. And I just thought that was the best.
That's awesome. Yeah. And she Booty Queen, right? Amanda Latona. She started that brand, and she was probably one of the prominent female competitors, I think, that softened the image of the sport and maybe brought in girls like you that my assumption is weren't as interested in the Iris Kyle style of physique, the hulking muscular physique. And there's a place for that. But that's all there was for quite some time. But I remember when bikini really started to take off alongside men's physique, which is the board short division. And
men's bikini, you mean?
Men's bikini, which is true, which is those, you know, which is true. It's funny because those guys in person are huge.
They're monsters, but they cut down so much.
It's funny to see, like, oh, those skinny guys. Like, no, you've never stood next to they're like 220, 240. Single digit.
Jeremy Bundia was like, and I remember like watching him getting bigger and bigger and going like, damn, is this still men's physique? Like,
yeah, it's crazy.
Just so like now, everything's been getting bigger.
And you see, and I think that's what happened. And maybe your insight, the bikini division kind of swelled into the wellness division in many ways. Right. And as I understand, and correct me here if I'm wrong, the wellness division focuses a little bit more on the curves, and they were trying to soften it. Because the bikini competitors were getting so shredded, they were starting to look like the fitness and figure competitors, which is kind of junior bodybuilding. Right.
Right.
And as you say, everyone keeps getting bigger. So even the bikinis, which were the aspirational, just like the ultimate beach body, lean but not shredded, like shapely and round, not sucked out. But it's the human nature. Well, maybe I can get a little bit more fat off. I can get tighter and drier and burn more fat.
Always going to be pushing the needle. Yeah.
So what happens now? The bikinis of today they're the Rachel McClishes, the Corey Eversons, and even the kind of the Lenda Murrays of 30, 20, 30 or so years or 40 years ago, dating myself here to do.
Or gosh, even figure at the Olympia back in the years when my coach used to do it, which really wasn't that long ago. This sport is relatively young. God, bikini's only been around since I think, 2011? 12?
Okay. Yeah. It's within the decade for sure.
It's young. Yeah. And we've already, I know bikini girls who look like old figure girls. Yeah.
Now, I do want to start touching on we'll talk about the drug use, in a minute, but I want to talk about the diet first. So what was your first entry into a bodybuilding style diet? And then how did that change for competition? Now, it sounds like you actually hooked up with a coach early on, so you were able to have maybe a little bit better instruction than just the bodybuilding.com. It's funny. I spoke with, we have a lot of female competitors who reach out to us usually after they've destroyed their body, right? To hear the way they talk, and they, because Ronda Rousey, of course, has done a lot to bring female attention to what we do here at the Dolce Diet. But they're telling me these horror stories and some of these prep coaches, you would know their names. He's having me eat dry oatmeal. I can't even mix it with water, right? White fish. Have you done that?
I have no words for that, but I hear it all the time.
that type of insanity all the time. White fish.
No carbs. I know you hate that. You love carbs just like I do. Absolutely no carbs. Except they're eating vegetables, and I'm going, there's carbs in those vegetables. You know that, right?
But the green vegetables don't count, though. These and then they'll have them hit like a waxy maze or whatever these, glucose delivery, powders. They'll have them hit those all day long. We'll get there because, I want to talk about insulin, some other things maybe, because I see that there's even bikini girls who are shooting insulin now, which is mind-blowing. But let's talk about the diet first. What was your normal diet? And then how did you transition into more of a bodybuilding style diet?
So first of all, right before I got into bodybuilding, I was dating someone who was a heavy drinker. And wasn't really my thing. My mom was a drinker, so that was very much a big red flag for me. But I just, I was in that relationship. I was young. I was 22 and kind of still figuring myself out. So I went out and drank and didn't really care too much about my food. My body wasn't bad. It was maybe more so, like, I guess some people might call it like skinny fat. But I still had a good body. I'm not going to discount that. But I know I was not properly fueling myself. As soon as I jumped into bodybuilding, jumped in head first, I initially, because this was about 10 years ago, I just used what we call a bro diet. Really simple. I restricted a lot of foods. I ate your very basic, chicken, rice, protein pancakes, and that was it. And a lot of protein shakes. When I met Jamie, I thank God, my one and only coach, I've now been with her for 8 years. She actually only uses flexible dieting.
Is that Jamie right here?
That's Jamie. That's
awesome.
my pro card win in 2015 in Miami.
Wow.
Yeah, that was great. She's wonderful. So she focuses on flexible dieting. She wouldn't give me a meal plan. And she said, no, because I want you to learn about food. And I want you to learn about the composition of food. And I posted about this, I think, yesterday or the day before. Personally, I think that this is something that should be taught to kids. Yeah. Obviously, there's caveats there. Of course, we always want to make sure when we're teaching kids about diets that obviously we're not inducing eating disorders. I'm sure that, but there's a way around that. Of course, there's a way that it can be done right. And I do think I like, how did it take me until I was 25 years old to find out how many carbs are in an apple? I should know. I think that we should all be able to know that. And I think that that's one of the big problems right now, is that there are a lot of people walking around who don't know A, what they need, or B, what they're putting in their body.
Yeah.
And so she introduced me to what's called flexible dieting, AKA macro. Some people might hear about macro or calorie counting. You might also hear about IIFYM, which is if it fits your macros. Yeah. It's all kind of the same thing. They're all kind of iterations of each other. But essentially the concept of flexible dieting is that we're able to we set guardrails around our carbs, proteins, and fats. We have goals. We have daily goals. So maybe my daily carbs are 150, daily fat is 45, and my daily protein is 120. These numbers are not set in stone. They fluctuate because our bodies fluctuate and our goals fluctuate. But essentially, we're able to eat whatever we want as long as we hit those goals. So she gave me the opportunity to kind of figure it out and learn and have to play the game, that Tetris game of making everything fit. And, I use an app. I use MyFitnessPal to track my food. I'm moving things around, making sure that at the end of the day, I hit those goals. So I'm very thankful for that, because I came to her eating like a bro. I remember one day I asked her, how many protein shakes should I be drinking? I'm only drinking one a day right now, but should I be drinking more? Because, you see these guys walking around with their protein shakes. And she went, I don't want you to drink any protein shakes. I want you to eat food. And I went like, what? Wow. What do you, whoa. Like that was that was a huge deal to me. And like, how could that be possible? I'm supposed to be taking my supplements and drinking my protein powder. Yep. So she introduced, I guess, just real food to me, and just being able to kind of get away from that bro mentality.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you talk to the top bodybuilders, although they talk about supplements, they slang their supplements all the time. When you actually break down what they actually eat, it's all food. Very little supplements, especially as they get closer to competition. Mm-hmm. Maybe around the training window, they'll throw some supplements in there outside of the drug use per se, but it's all food-based. You talk to guys like Hanny Rambod or Chris Aceto, or, some of these other top prep coaches. It's a Chad Nichols. It's a matter of pushing food into the athlete and keeping them off of supplements, because the supplements, increases satiety sometimes and makes it harder for them to get the food into it. So they want the food. Many reasons is because of the vital cofactors that some of the prep coaches know and understand, which have yielded a higher return. So it's awesome that Jamie was able to instruct that to you. And I find most of the ladies that reach out to us, they never hear that. They think they can live on fat burners, on a few powders, and maybe like a salad with some chicken.
Yeah.
You know, egg whites and a little bit of oats, maybe if it's their high carb day, right? And they're dying on 800 calorie diets with some supplements thrown in on the side.
I think just the stories I'm hearing, even now to this day, somehow it's 2022 and I'm still hearing these stories. And I said to, I think my fiance the other day, I was like, these guys need to go to jail, because there are people who actually have ended up in the hospital because of these diets. There are people there are women whose hormones are wrecked. What about their fertility? What happens when they want to have a kid in 5 years?
Yeah.
You know? So, and that's a conversation that I have to have with my clients sometimes, or with girls who come to me who want to do extreme diets or extreme fitness regimen because that's what they're used to. And they're like, I'm not eating more than 1,200 calories. I'm going to say, I can't in good faith coach you that way, because what if I hear 10 years down the road, you're having trouble conceiving a child and it was because of something that I did?
Yeah.
I can't have that, you know? So it's like health first, although I know we kind of touched on this earlier. It's like in this industry, everything's kind of flipped. I think that health should be first and aesthetics should follow.
Yep.
Oftentimes we see it flipped in bodybuilding.
Well, bodybuilding has nothing to do with health. I should say competitive bodybuilding has nothing to do with health, but that is the public perception. Bodybuilders must be healthy. You and I both know, and I got some friends that are pros, and the names that we all see, they're the least healthy humans I know. By far, they're the most dedicated and disciplined. They will suffer and sacrifice more than like all but like the A-level military operators. These bodybuilders will suffer to the point of literally killing themselves. They will suffer that far to literally kill themselves.
We're seeing it recently. Have you seen what's going on?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's out of control. They're dropping like flies.
And so we understand how unhealthy bodybuilding is, and there's that allure. And I think a lot of it is the muscle dysmorphia, more so for the guys. We have these body dysmorphia, issues where we're all trying to be something. I remember years ago, Flex Magazine was like the little boys in gorilla suits talking about the average male bodybuilder. Literally, it's some sort of insecurity. I'm sure I started lifting weights at 8 years old because I lost my father and like horrible upbringing. I was just looking for a way to claim control over myself, to give me something that I could control and I could dictate the outcome. And then I saw growth, and then I got a compliment. Oh, you noticed me because like you could see my bicep or whatever it was. And then that translated into the athletic field where I won a trophy. So it was constantly like this insecurity that was being filled with, through the healthy pursuit. I was fortunate. I kept it on the healthy side. It's funny. I blame Flex Wheeler as to why I never became a bodybuilder, because I was, coming out of high school when he won the NPC USAs.
Okay.
And I saw the picture of him winning. I was like, oh, there's no way.
It's not going to happen.
That's not going to happen. Not with my genetics. No, there's not going to happen. My genetics, no way can I ever. I knew because I understood genetically, I do not have the structure to be that. I won't play in the NBA either, no matter what. Period. The end. Okay. But I was strong and I could do some other strength combat style things where I could shine and win trophies and whatnot. So all my effort went that way, but I was training guys like Rich Kaspari because I was in high school. I was a 600 plus pound squatter, 700, even 800 pound, like hard to find guys to show up on a 600 pound day. Right.
Wow. Yeah.
So I became one of these local New Jersey guys and guys like Johnny Moran and Matt Duvall and Jason Orange, like the older school names. I was always like the kid in the background because I could train with these dudes and like push the intensity, like, which was really cool. But I was like, I do not want to be that. You guys
Yeah.
smell like broccoli farts all day long, right? And this is in like the bodybuilder, like crazy wear, gorilla wear kind of days of like all the baggy clothes, like mid 90s, later 90s or so coming through. So anyway, that's just my little aside. But
no, it's important to level set with yourself and to set realistic expectations and to know yourself, to know your why.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that some people try to sort of force themselves into something, and then that's where the drugs come in, and then it just kind of spirals. So, for example, I said this to my coach the other day, and of course she wanted to disagree. But I said, I'm not going to be an Olympian. I'm not shooting for going to the Olympia. And she was like, no, because of course she wants to see me at the Olympia. But I said, and that's okay though. But I entered bodybuilding knowing that, because I had a marketing job that I loved.
Yeah.
And bodybuilding was not my only love. Bodybuilding to me is a hobby. Yeah. It's something that brings me joy. It's something that has, although we say for the most part, the bodybuilding is not really a very healthy sport. It, in some ways, indirectly kind of led me to this point where I'm so focused on health, and I'm really happy with where I've ended up. But no, I don't want to push it to go to the Olympia, and it's okay to say that.
Yeah, hey, absolutely.
That's just not the caliber of training or life commitment that I want to make right now.
And with that, I think now's a good time to start, to touch on drugs, because to go to the Olympia, the amount of drugs that you would have to take is massive. And most likely it's more drugs than you've ever taken before. Every competitor, usually in the beginning, they think they got to just keep adding grams, right? How many grams you take it is kind of like the bodybuilding vernacular. If you're taking a gram, that is a lot already.
I'm sorry, but if some people know I'm a bit of a stoner, the only grams I'm talking about are going to be weed.
Right on. Yeah.
Which that honestly, that is, I've compared that. I've like used that as like, that's my anabolic steroid, which maybe we can get into it another time. But what cannabis has done for me, for my physique, for my training has been so amazing that I've like joked around with friends and said that cannabis is anabolic, because for me it has been.
How so?
The focus that I get from using weed before a workout is absolutely wild. I am able to go into I'm able to get into that flow state that we all would love to achieve. Which is tough,
Yeah.
I'm able to flow, to really center, get extremely focused. I'm able to feel all the little muscles, feel how everything is working. You're so in touch with your body. You're so I don't even know who else is at the gym. I don't know what's going on around me. I have my music on and I am feeling everything that's going on in my body. And that, I think that, when I was a bit younger, like 18, 19, 20, I kind of just dabbled in weed for fun. But then I stopped for a while, and in my late 20s, I brought it back in more of a medicinal way for my training and for my recovery. And the gains and the recovery were just so much obviously better. And I've stuck with it. I rarely use pre-workout. I actually just use weed now.
So weed pre-workout for the mental clarity and focus that you have. It's a lot of more jiu-jitsu competitors than the fighters, because sparring, that's an issue. But a lot of the jits competitor, high level,
flowing, rolling,
and they just flow and they feel it, right? And it works and comes together. Do you find, is there any contradiction with appetite? Does it help? Does it hurt appetite? Do you have cravings that you can't control? You're a disciplined person anyway, so I think I could answer it for you.
But it's something really important to touch on, for sure. First of all, it's important to, I look at cannabis with the same level of detail that I look at my food. And I use it as strategically as I use food as well. So I'm logging the strains that I'm using, how I'm, what the actual intake method is, how was that workout? Was it great? Was it bad for some reason? So I have my favorites, and then same goes for like the munchies. There are actual specific strains that do not induce munchies. There are some of those that you can look up online. There's a lot of good information. But yeah, I also love indica, especially for recovery, for sleep. Like I'm a high performer. I have to get up in the morning very early, do my cardio, then I've got to get to work, then I've got to lift, and I need to make sure that I'm sleeping. And so of course, cannabis is helping with that. Indica can definitely kick you into munchies. So what I do, I have some strategies. I keep specific snacks, sort of cleaner snacks, in my house. I keep things like grapes, even just hard-boiled eggs, things that I can just grab and snack on, baby carrots. But at the same time, I think that when you use the plant in a more medicinal way and you respect the plant and it's not really like a party thing, I think that things like munchies they don't occur quite as frequently.
Yeah, I think that's something that comes being a little bit more mature, myself also. I grew up in a weed culture, let's say, and it was like not a big deal, but I wasn't I'm not a drinker at all. So I work security down here. I live on the Jersey Shore. I work in the bars. I wouldn't frequent the bars, right? And I wouldn't drink alcohol. I think because I was in the scene, like I just hated it. So I'd smoke. I keep like a little dugout. I'd smoke. It just kept me real calm, right? Just chilling. I was always great at breaking up fights because I was a bigger guy. I was a wrestler and I was just so laid back. I could like talk my way out. Never broke up fight, never had a fight, which is awesome. But as you kind of get older, it's like now my relationship with weed is very medicinal. It's targeted. It's like prescription minded in order to like, what is my need right now? My medical need coming down. But I do say I'm like a blue sky smoker. Like I like to get outside in the blue sky. Like I live on the beach, like smoke, chill out on the beach, like just lay there and enjoy it. Yeah. Like, training and all that stuff. But how do you ingest? Like, do you smoke? Do you vape? Do you edibles? Do you tinctures? What's your delivery method?
Kind of all of it, but I've been changing this in the past.
Baby.
This spring, all of it. But in the past year or so, I've been vaporizing it more. That is the healthier way to smoke it. So I use either a small vaporizer or I have a Volcano, which is like this beautiful German engineering, like $600 rig, but I love it. It's such a treat. It's, from what I've been told, I've talked to a couple of cannabis experts and a couple of doctors about this, and they said that the Volcano is the cleanest way to ingest weed, the cleanest and healthiest way, because smoking anything is a carcinogen. Yeah. So it's not just cigarettes. Smoking a joint is not great for us. Although we get the benefits of the cannabis, we really shouldn't be putting, I talked to an expert on cannabis recently, and she said that she never puts flame to flower. And I thought that was a good way to put it. Okay. Got it. In terms of ingesting it in a more healthy way. Yeah. And actually a lot of this came from, I had an MRI and realized that I have a couple of degenerative discs, my L4, L5. Yeah. And when I started to really dive into spine health, I realized that, I saw a lot of call outs for make sure you're not smoking. They were talking about cigarettes, but I went, well, what about weed? And then I realized that's a carcinogen too. And that can actually dehydrate your discs. So I made sure to try and really use joints or the bong in moderation, if ever, and try to switch over to vaporizing.
Awesome. Now, I want to talk about.
Now we can get into steroids.
No, let's get into the steroid. But it was nice to kind of like, to sightsee over on the weed side, which I do agree with, and advocate for, as long as it's legal, as long as it's medically.
You're using it the right way, like use it with a purpose, and respect the plant. Yeah.
Agreed. Now, steroids. So if you don't mind, and I remember maybe a year or two ago is when I first reached out, you actually posted publicly about some of the regrets you had with your own bodybuilding drug usage and the negative effects it had on you. So if you care to share your story of kind of entering into never taking drugs and then your first drug cycle, drug stack, into the world, and then what happened from that point.
Sure. So first of all, preface this by saying, again, I'm a bikini competitor and I haven't actually dabbled, or I haven't tried a whole lot of these drugs. Really, I've used Sarms, I've used Ostarine, Cardarine, and then I've used Anavar for a short period of time. I'll tell you about that. Didn't like it.
Yeah.
And now I'm using peptides more. So now I'm injecting Samorelin and thymosin alpha as well. That's a whole nother topic. So peptides are kind of their own category. But in terms of anabolic steroids, I myself really haven't done too much. And as a coach, I don't prescribe them except in rare occasions. I had one competitor who just loves a low dose of Anavar. She was already using it prior. I said, I'll be comfortable with that if you work with our team's functional doctor who manages all of our blood work.
Yeah.
So we go through a company called Hormone Logics in Florida. I get my blood work done. I get it monitored. She also monitors my peptide use. She helps me with the dosage. She helps me to get the right peptides. So I said to my client who wanted to run Anavar, I said, fine, but let's work with a real, like, I'm a professional, but let's work with a real, health
absolutely
professional on this. So for the most part, I'm really, I'm not too involved with that side of the bodybuilding world. I guess I would say I kind of stay a bit out of it. But yeah, I've dabbled. Sarms were the first that I tried.
Which one?
Ostarine. And I believe I was reading, I think it was a Ben Greenfield article where he was talking about Sarms as biohacking tools. And I went, oh, okay. Because I was kind of under the impression that everything was steroids. Yep. And he basically said, Sarms just kind of fall within the biohacking category. So then I started to do my research. I wouldn't say I maxed out on my natural potential, but I did get my pro card naturally, which is at least
rare.
now very rare.
Yeah.
It was 2015. We talked about how fast the sport has progressed. It was a softer look back then, even just in 2015. So I was able to get my pro card naturally, do my first 2 shows naturally. And then I went, okay, I'm here. I'm in the pros. Obviously, the competition is at a whole nother level. The girls are bigger, they're tighter, they're harder. And also, I was just a bit more open-minded. So I did run Anavar. I ran a few cycles, just hated every minute of it, honestly. And my dose was so low. I think I was at 10 milligrams or something.
Wow.
And I just hated the way it made me feel. And I saw one of my friends one day, and she said, "What's going on with you? Your glow is gone." And I looked in the mirror, and I was like, I look like a zombie. And I had my eyes were all sunken in. My color was kind of gone. I was sweating profusely 24/7. Yeah. So, of course, everything affects everyone differently.
Were you on, quick question. So when you were on Anavar, were you on any thermogenics at the same time? You said you were sweating all the time. Was there some sort of thermogenic in addition, like the Cardarine possibly, which is...
just because there's too many variables. So I pulled the Sarms out when I ran Anavar. If I'm going to, I like to experiment. I like to be a guinea pig, especially because I coach as well. So I want to make sure that I've tried everything. I've tried every diet. I've done keto, carnivore, vegan, vegetarian, pescatarian, flexible dieting, meal. I've kind of done it all because I want to have that experience and actually be able to speak on it, and then maybe I have a client that is going to benefit from keto. Sure. I don't want to do it, but maybe they need it for whatever reason. So, so I like to kind of experiment, and then I log what's going on. I log the biofeedback. Biofeedback is everything for me. So I was tracking how that was going. I just was not loving the side effects. So I stopped. I will say I was a little bit tighter. I was a little bit bigger. I was a little bit harder. My body looked great, but I just wasn't feeling great.
And what year was that you were running Anavar?
That would have been about 2018 is probably when I tried a few different cycles at different times and at different doses, at different lengths, because I was just like, I want to get this right. And I was having friends tell me, hey, I love it. Give it a shot. Give it a shot.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's just not for me.
And Anavar is often prescribed now. So HRT clinics, TRT clinics. So Anavar or oxandrolone is often prescribed more for men, but as a alternative and an accessory to a TRT program. So if you're getting TRT, and some of the guys here get TRT, well, they'll prescribe Anavar pretty easily. Now, you say you were taking 5 to 10 milligrams per day. And it's funny because bodybuilders consider like 10 milligrams for a female is kind of a low dose.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's kind of a high dose for like, if you like pull out a little bit and you're like, wow, but for stage ready, then it maybe is a more moderate dose. But if you pull out, it's like 5 mgs, 2 on, 1 off, 3 on, 1 off, like lower, but slightly longer.
Yeah.
Like 8-week cycles, typically 6 to 8 week cycles you see.
Yeah.
Were you taking any also? And Anavar is a prep drug, works typically amazing for women, really well for a lot of guys. Guys are typically on testosterone also. I'm assuming you've never taken testosterone, which is powerful, right? That's a hard one. You don't look like it. And most of the ladies that I've met, I can kind of tell. Just even small cycles, you can see a little bit. Primobolan, anything like that? You ever run any of those softer bodybuilding drugs?
No. And I hear a lot about, Winstrol, and I know that the girls are messing around with a few different things, DMP. There's some drugs that are getting thrown around that there's a group of people that they will all say, this is great. You can do it in a healthy way. It's totally fine. And there's other people saying this is way too dangerous. We shouldn't even be fucking around with it at all. Yeah. So it's really hard for the average guy. It's hard enough for me to just figure out what is right. What is, and of course it varies so much from person to person, but you should be working with a professional, working with a coach who knows what they're doing. But at the same time, there are a lot of coaches who do know what they're doing, who are still going to push drugs. We are still seeing girls passing out on stage or ending up in the hospital or whatever, and who knows about the long-term effects? Because again, we're dealing with an industry that's relatively young. Yeah. Just in the past, year or so, we are starting to see a lot more deaths, but I'm kind of wondering, what is it going to look like in 10, 20 years? Yeah. And these girls who are right now in their 20s, what's going to happen when they try to start a family or when they try to get out of bodybuilding and just get back to just living? What are they going to be left with? I don't know. Yeah. And before we get off the drugs, any specific cutting drugs that you took and you're like, wow, that stuff actually works, regardless of kind of how you felt, that's secondary. Anything that you took, you're like, holy shit, like I've noticed a discernible effect from this specific drug. So I talked to a lot of the guy bodybuilders. They're like, man, I don't know. I'm taking like 7 things. It's hard to tell what works. See, that's what I don't like. I don't like the idea of multiple variables and not being able to measure something. Yeah. Some of that comes from my marketing career. So in marketing, we don't do anything that we can't measure. So of course, I'm not going to run an ad where I don't get the performance, where I can't actually see how that ad performed. So I like to be able to measure everything. If I throw 10 things at myself at the same time, I'm not really going to know what's working. Yep. I will say I really enjoyed Ostarine. Okay. I experienced 0 side effects. I felt a little bit stronger. I looked a little bit fuller, but it really wasn't too huge of a difference or a transformation. I liked the way I felt, although I will say I do tend to kind of get a little bit bulky on it, even at a low dose. Oh, wow. That's great when I'm really actively bodybuilding. Right now, I'm kind of trying to stay a little bit tighter, and I want to say the word feminine. Femininity is kind of a spectrum for different, we all consider feminine to mean something different. Sure. And bodybuilding, the women with the huge bodies, they might consider that to be feminine. I have a different definition, and that's okay. We all have different definitions. But right now I'm not running Ostarine because it does kind of affect that. I get a little bit bulky, but I liked it. In terms of cutting drugs, like you mentioned, fat burners. Yeah. Food is my fat burner and sleep is my fat burner. Okay. Sleep is my best fat burner. And it takes a long time to kind of realize that and to kind of accept that. I saw someone mention there was like a meme or something, and they said they said waking up at 5 a.m., like cutting down your sleep to do cardio is like stepping over $1 to pick up a dime.
Yeah.
So sleep is my fat burner, really. But I have enjoyed using yohimbine. I use a product from my sponsor Legion. They have a product called Forge that I really like. I use that pre-cardio. I will say I feel and see a noticeable difference from that. But at the same time, if you want to burn fat, you better be fully optimizing your food. And if once you've maxed that out, if you're really on point with your food, okay, I guess you could throw in a fat burner if you want to dabble in it, but I really don't think it's too necessary. And most people have not fully maximized their potential with their food.
No, that's true. Most people, they skip over food.
Oh yeah, they go right to the
They go right to the right to the drugs, right to the supplements, right to the extreme, instead of focusing on their food, getting their lifestyle in order. You mentioned sleep. We talk about that all the time. I don't even care about what your calories are, what your macros are within reason until you're sleeping 7.5 to 9 hours every night.
Yep. Same
if
here.
You're not doing that.
I'll tell my clients that too. Yeah.
And you know, as a coach also, it's like, I can tell you the perfect macros, but if you're getting 6 hours of sleep, you're hanging out, you know, with the idiots, you're going to the bar, you know, you're having a couple cocktails that you're not counting into your whole macro profile.
Yeah.
Dude, don't waste my time. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your money. Don't waste my time.
Money. Yeah. That's really the thing about supplements is that supplements, any kind of supplement, really, just your standard GNC supplements, you better be maximizing everything else and optimizing everything else before, otherwise you're just wasting money. And there's so much that you can do for free or at a very low cost when it comes to fitness. And there is so much marketing that is telling us otherwise. These brands, they're just.
And you're a marketing expert, so you see right through it, right?
Absolutely, I see it, and it's all marketing, and we're all kind of victims of it. In fitness.
We are. I would say you were a victim of Ben Greenfield's. I don't know if Ben's a good guy or a bad guy, but I see a lot of his marketing, and the majority that I see is highly deceptive and disingenuous, which makes me sad. You know, I get sad when I see people like that who have platforms that probably are good humans, but they get, you know, too focused on the cheddar and not enough on the integrity side of it. That's my opinion.
It's like one of my first questions about anybody. I'm always like, well, what are they selling? You know, I was talking to my fiance about the Liver King the other day. He was, I don't know much about this guy.
Liver King.
But I think that my fiance went down the rabbit hole on him and then watched your video. And we were talking about him. And I just went, let's just skip the bullshit. What's he selling?
Yeah.
And my fiance, he's like, oh, he's selling all the products.
All of them. Of course. It's almost like a Jeff Cavaliere from Athlean X. If you go, it's the biggest fitness channel on YouTube, and he has been. And Jeff, I think he's a physical therapist or exercise physiologist, something like that. So he's got a traditional academic degree, and he's got a little bit of experience. He's got this great channel. He looks freaking great. But when you look at Jeff's programs, you go onto his site, man, he is throwing all the garbage at you. Now, his forward facing, his initial touch is like, you know, it's pretty good exercises. It's kind of a little bit of like noob meets like the Wizard of Oz, you know, like, oh, you can build out your head of your bicep by simply twisting your pinky up this way and it'll bring out this. It's not really true, Jeff. Like, yeah, all right, maybe you're kind of, you know, you have a kinesiology background. You can kind of speak to what that is supposed to do, but you and I both know your bicep is pretty much going to look the way your bicep looks. Tweaking your pinky one way or the other is going to have such a negligible impact on 99% of the people who ever watches stuff, which is just nobody who will step on the Olympia stage ever.
And that's an overwhelming detail. We have to stop overwhelming people who are new or new-ish to fitness with details. I have to stop myself. I catch myself doing it on Instagram because sometimes, you know, we end up in these like echo chambers with like-minded people. So so the people who I follow on Instagram or who follow me or who are regularly I'm engaging with, a lot of the time they already know about things like macros. So I have to remind myself to kind of explain some things and to not overwhelm people with things like that, turning your finger a certain way. Let's just get people doing bicep curls.
That's it.
With good form. Let's start with that.
That's it.
And that's
Agreed.
what a lot of the supplements are, just overwhelming. The different diets are overwhelming. It's like, let's just keep it simple. Let's go back to the basics that work.
And every high level competitor that we work with, it's all basics. Their training is basic. Their lifestyle is basic. The foods that they eat is relatively basic. And I say it's only like that last 10%, the peak. Well, that's where things get more intricate, right? At the peak level. And another analogy I use is the first takedown a wrestler's ever taught. It's the single leg. The number one takedown successful in the Olympics. Well, that's the single leg. First jab you ever learn in or first punch you ever learn in a boxing gym is a jab. The most landed punch in the professional ranks. Well, that's the jab. The most basic.
So get that down. Get the foundation down first. Yeah.
That's exactly it. A couple more things here. I want to talk about, or if you could highlight, well, the two things I want to know. What is your normal kind of off-season schedule, lifestyle, but more exercise? And then I want you to, if you could contrast your competition peaking lifestyle to your current off-season lifestyle, like cardio training sessions. What are the goals? Because you're already intense. You're up early. You're hitting cardio before you go to work. And then you're back in the gym after work. That right there is like contest prep for most people, but for you, that's off season. So if you could just highlight the contrast.
Yeah. And I think the most important thing when we're talking about the off season, it's important that we find that life balance and that we're able to finally enjoy those things like going out to restaurants, going to concerts, hanging out with friends, going on vacations. It's really important that we have that balance. The balance sort of kind of goes away when we're prepping. That's okay. We know it's going to. So in the off season, what's important to me is that I have that balance and also that I'm training how I want to train. I'm doing the things that bring me joy, or that make me feel good. So in my off season, I enjoy cardio. I enjoy either hiking. I enjoy getting up in the morning and getting on the treadmill if it's snowing outside. But I really like cardio, and I kind of turned around on that because in bodybuilding, cardio is kind of demonized. We really only want to use it right at that last minute to pull off some fat. So for a long time, I thought, okay, I should just be lifting and not doing cardio. But actually, it is good for our health to some degree, right? When done,
absolutely,
in the right amount. And for me, it feels good. If I do my walk, my cardio in the morning, I feel like I got the blood flowing. I feel more productive. So yeah, I'm still doing it in the off season. Also, I'll note that I am coming off of these degenerative discs. So my training has been a little bit different. It's been a bit less intense than it used to be. But in general, in the off season, I am able to do a little bit less cardio, increase my food, which is always great. We try to take the carbs up as high as we can get them. I don't like to put on a lot of body fat in the off season. I don't think that it's necessary, at least at my level or at my division. I don't need to be bulking per se. Most girls, unless you're maybe, a figure competitor or a women's physique competitor, probably don't need to be doing these massive bulks. And actually on my team, we end up getting a lot of girls who come to us from some other teams where they're like 5'2", and in their off season, their coach is putting 30, 40 pounds on them. I don't think that that's necessary. I don't think that that's even good for us. It's going to make your prep even harder. It's going to be so hard to pull off that fat, especially depending on how fast you put it on in the off season. If you just ramped up calories and just bulked up, that's going to be real hard to get off. So I like to stay relatively lean. And it's also a confidence thing. I want to feel good. I want to look good. I got a hot fiance. I want to look good for him. I want to be able to do a couple of photo shoots throughout my off season. And I like those curves too, actually, but I try to keep it relatively tight. But yeah, in the off season, I'm enjoying life a little bit more. I might go out to restaurants and not worry so much about my food. I might go on a vacation. I might take a week off of tracking my food every now and then. I like to give myself those little breaks. speaking of food, geez.
I know. I'm like perfect timing.
I was in Barcelona this entire week right here. That's all Barcelona food. But yes, that's off season for me. Like if you look at these pictures, I'm lifting. I'm still looking strong.
Yep.
You know, but as you can see, like on the top left there, that was in Barcelona, but I'm also eating ice cream. But I'm always conscious of the relationship between my intake and my output. So even in the off season, if I am fucking around and going on vacation and eating ice cream, I'm making sure that I'm moving. I'm getting lots of steps. I'm walking around that new city. And if I'm eating like an asshole and I'm on vacation, I'm probably also getting 20 to 25,000 steps a day is usually where I'm at. So there's still balance involved.
Yep.
These reps probably suck. This is old. Those are fast. Those are some fast reps. Jesus.
That looks good. It looks good. Well, it's very athletic, you know.
I had a butt though. That's good. See
my
butt there. And then when I get into actually prepping for a show, the focus is on the show. So the priorities shift a little bit, eating out a bit less. The cool thing is that I do use flexible dieting, so I'm still able to incorporate some balance. I'm able to go out to restaurants. However, that's only because I'm now at such a level with my tracking that I know what's in my food because I've been tracking and weighing my food long enough.
Now this is.
You want to see? Actually, right there, that was when I was doing some keto because I saw some keto pancakes right there.
Oh,
don't take me back. Don't take me back to that.
Bam! Keto pancakes, bacon, and peanut butter.
Oh, jeez.
Man.
I might not have been. I'm not sure if these were my keto ones, but yeah, I did dabble in keto for a little bit. I even tried the carnivore diet for about 2 weeks.
And how'd that feel for you?
It felt fine. I actually enjoyed the food, but I knew it wasn't sustainable. There's no way I'm going to sustain that. I kind of just did it just for fun. What I've noticed is that on higher fat and higher protein, I tend to hold a lot of water and a lot of inflammation.
Interesting.
I get very just sludgy feeling. When I did keto, I felt like I had oil running through my veins. I just felt slow and sludgy. My digestive system was just, I felt like I was full of fat, full of oil, which I kind of was.
Yeah, absolutely. My opinion in dealing with all the humans that we deal with here, through our practice, personal experience, but also my knowledge of being in the health and fitness world for so many years, the effects of keto, carnivore, and even paleo, more of the structured diets that are exclusionary, the large success is mostly through the elimination of the highly processed, highly palatable foods.
Yeah. And that's going to happen right off the bat. Of course, you're going to drop that water weight. Of course, if I go from eating donuts to just eating steak, I'm going to drop a lot of water weight because when we eat carbs, carbs involve some water weight.
Yep.
So, but it's good water weight. but yeah,
it's real weight.
That initial drop off. And then after some time, they go, oh, now it's not really working. What's going on?
Because all the water fell off and now it's left just you and, slabs of bacon and butter and these,
And you love your carbs, right? I love the way that you push carbs and that you are constantly reminding people that we need them and we love them and they don't make us fat.
It's funny that I'm considered a contrarian in modern fitness circles because I talk about eating high net nutrient, healthful whole foods, not excluding vital macronutrient groups. I'm a contrarian because I'm saying like, hey, oats and quinoa, rice, potatoes, fresh fruits, lentils, beans. Yes, they should be a part of your overall diet based upon digestibility, cultural access matters, what your goals are, body mass, what your ratio is. If you're a lot heavier, well, maybe we keep the carbs a little bit lower. There is a balance there. Expenditure, stress levels, sleep, Have we won, because we can go deep. Have we run blood work? We can go deeper and deeper and
so
deeper.
much involved. Yeah.
In general, and I mean, easy when I talk about this on this channel, I said in general, we say 4x4, 4 meals, 4 hours apart, 4 times a day, healthful, whole foods, lean, green, clean, lean proteins, green vegetables, clean burning carbs. Do that for a month, for 4 weeks.
Oh yeah.
And then don't be a dickhead. Like the meal should be about the same size, give or take. Mm-hmm. And then you let me know, how do you feel? Mm-hmm. Learn, like Jamie said, learn your body. Don't count calories. Don't even count macros at first. Let's understand how these foods make you feel. You're a little heavy, a little bloated. Well, why is that? You only ate 3 things an hour. Which 3 things jacked you up, do you think?
I love building the skills around listening to your body.
Yep.
I think that there's such a disconnect. There's so many people who are walking around right now who have no idea what the hell is going on in their body, and they feel like shit and they don't know why. And that's why I love tracking biofeedback, and just being more mindful of what we're putting in our body, and then how do we feel? I think that's a huge miss for a lot of people.
It is. Most people, they don't have that presence of mind. And this is, we say, be mindful. Mm-hmm. Mindful of your choices. Be intentional. And then be accountable.
Yes.
Honestly,
everything with intention. I love it. Your cardio, every step. When you go for a walk, take every step with intention. And that's actually, there's a huge difference between doing cardio, being on the treadmill, and just looking at my phone, and being on the treadmill and fucking moving in every step. I absolutely know that there's a huge difference.
That's such a good point. And that is often missed by the layperson. You're a competitor, right? So you understand that's the difference. There's an intention with what you're doing. Every step you're thinking, probably glute activation, hamstring. What's my core doing in this very moment? Right. Yeah. So all of that, the locomotion, the gait, the footfalls, all of that, you have this awareness of, which you're reinforcing. It's Kobe Bryant practicing free throws before the Lakers even show up to practice. Right. Like it's just over and over and getting better. And that's the thing, that such a good point, that the average person should employ, even if maybe they only have 30 minutes a day right now to exercise. Be intentional with that.
Right. Be in that moment, present. This is my 30 minutes for myself, or whatever it is. And so I'm going to go all out for those 30 minutes. I'm not going to be on my phone. That was I think in my very first training program that Jamie gave me, one of the notes at the top was, it was like headphones in, phone down. She was saying, don't even talk to people in the gym. Don't get involved in the social circles in the gym. We're not at the bar. We're here to do work and get out.
It's funny because I say this all the time, and we get a lot of people that Mike, like, can you do a workout? Can you film your workout? Which is super cool. But I'm like, number one, I feel like a tool. Like if I'm like, no, I'm working. If I'm worried and I don't have like a cameraman following me around, like that's
we can't all have that.
Right. I mean, every so often that's cool. You can create content, whatnot. But the average workout, like when we're done here, I'm going to just
not
put on my gym shoes and I'm going to go fucking die for an hour. Take myself as close to the feeling of death as I can in a healthy way. I'm not going to stop to set up cameras and lighting like many people do. So it's funny to hear that. I love Jamie. It's awesome. She has such good tenets that she's instructing, into her clientele. And that's the point. Be intentional, because then maybe you probably don't get that last rep. Honestly, you don't dig deeper, that last little bit to push yourself, just that one, getting one extra down. You converted one extra down. That next sequence, well, that can get you into the end zone instead of punting.
Yeah.
The more you do that in life, well, shit, then you're just middling, right? You're an also
it's a good lesson for life, just to be present in general, and that whatever you're doing right now, be present and do it 100%.
Question for you. I'm conscious of your time. I said an hour. We're slightly over, so thank you for giving us this little extra time.
Yeah.
Gym creeps.
Yeah. As
a lady, how do you deal with gym creep? I was speaking with my wife about this just the other day, of like, we were talking about something on TV. and I forget what it was. It was Resident Alien. If you ever watched this show, it's this like quirky little show.
Oh, I heard about it. Yeah, yeah.
Funny, and one of the female characters said to the alien, like, you'll never know what it is to be a woman, and like the eyes constantly looking at you. And that started a conversation with my wife and I as we were watching. And she's like, yeah, and I'm like, my God, I could only imagine. I think they did a good job. And then they put him in a woman's body for a little while, and he was like groped, and this whole thing came on. But we're here in the fitness world. Have you, because I let me back up again. Some of the gentlemen on this channel were like, hey, Mike, how do I pick up a girl in the gym? Say, fucking don't. Leave her alone. Like, for God, leave her alone. Do your work. Be classy.
Yeah.
And then maybe there's a way that you can engage outside the gym, but please do not invade a young lady's space who's in there trying to get her work done. And I'm assuming guard is already up, because there's, you know how these places are, some worse than others for sure. But you, as a lady inside the fitness world in the gym, have you had any creeper experiences? And then how do you deal with it?
Well, first of all,
I know your fiance is a really massive, scary man.
I'm going to close the door real quick.
Okay.
I mean, I have one really simple rule. I don't make eye contact, to be honest.
Yeah.
I probably look kind of rude when I'm in the gym. I don't know.
Yep.
It doesn't really matter, because I'm getting in there to do some work.
Yep.
But for the most part, I don't make eye contact. I don't sit around. I'm not, looking at people and this kind of, I don't really welcome it. I probably don't look very welcoming in the gym. Yep. I have headphones on. I am focused on what I'm doing, and I am here, and I really don't make much eye contact. I get my shit done. And I think that when men see that, I think that they either respect it or they're intimidated by it.
Yep.
Fine. Either way works for me. I've never had a problem with a guy in the gym. Never even once. Sure. I've had a guy walk up to me and maybe say something. It doesn't really happen too often, because I'm really not sending out a welcoming vibe for that. Yeah. And when they do walk up, first of all, if the headphones are in and someone's talking to you, we've already got a problem. Yeah. But it's kind of obvious. I'll kind of take them out. What? Okay. All right. It's real short and to the point, because I typically, I'm in between sets. I'm trying to knock some shit out. I got to get back to work, or I got to get back and eat or something. But I try to, if someone smiles at me, I'll smile back. But for the most part, I try to be pretty unapproachable. Not sure if this is the right answer, but this is how I do it. Hey, it's how it works for me. And yeah, if the cool thing about going to the gym for people who are single is that it actually, I think it is a good place to meet someone, maybe more out in the parking lot or at the water fountain or whatever. Yep. But I do think it's really cool to find people who are also that dedicated. When I see a girl in the gym, just like when guys see a girl in the gym, it's probably what I'm thinking. I'm like, that's fucking awesome. That girl is confident enough to do this. She's dedicated. She wants to look hot. She wants to be healthy. She wants to work on herself. I think that that's super attractive. So if a guy is attracted to a girl in the gym, yeah, no wonder. I think gym girls are hot. Let them do their thing. If you happen to see them out in the parking lot, just say hi nicely, but yeah, not in the middle of sets.
Not in the middle of set, and in a very non-confrontational manner, right? Don't just walk up to her as she's trying to get into her car, right? Don't be that dude.
Yeah, no, it's like we're getting into like rules for life, basically. Just be cool. Just say, hey, or hey, that was I saw you like that was really impressive, or hey, I think it's awesome that you're doing this, or whatever. Hey, are you competing, or like what's your goal or whatever? But I don't know. Just don't be a weirdo in general.
That's the rule for life right there. Just don't be a weirdo in general, right? Give people their space, be respectful, don't be overbearing or invasive. If there's a little bit of chemistry there, well, be cordial without forcing the issue, and just
we have to respect each other's time in the gym, though. In general, we have to respect each other's time in the gym, because for most people, they're making it work within a half hour or an hour that they're on a lunch break or something. And for the most part, we really don't have much time, any of us, when we're in the gym. We're trying to just knock it out.
It's funny that I actually get hit on in the gym by guys all the time.
My fiance too, because he looks like a big bear.
And it's like I can only imagine. Your boyfriend is just like his whole image. I know he's a pro wrestler, and he's got the guitar. He's like,
Yeah.
He's got the look. My perspective, I get a lot of guys that are like, oh, like, can I ask you one thing? Like, fuck. What weight do you think I should be right now? And then it's like, and when I was 18, I had an ACL injury. And can you watch my set real quick? Like, literally, I'm like,
you're like,
what? So it's like, I actually get hit on by more dudes than probably you do, or most of the girls, in that it's just this I think, which is why maybe I'm sensitive to it. Yeah. So everything you were saying, like, I try not to make eye contact. I wear like a hat like this, plus a hood over the top, plus my headphones, which are off a lot of times. I just have them in.
Boundaries. That's boundary setting.
Right.
Boundary setting is really important, and one of my boundaries is I don't really want to talk for 10 minutes in the gym. So I make it pretty clear. And if that's my boundary, I'm going to stick to it. But in general, I think what's so cool about what bodybuilding has done for me is that it's made me feel a little bit less, it's made me feel a bit more unfuckable with, I hold myself, I carry myself in a different way. When I walk through a parking lot, like a dark, empty parking lot, I might feel a little bit more confident. I might carry myself a little bit differently. Yeah. When you got some delts and you got some back muscles, you're like, you got the posture. And as a chick, when you walk around with that, people look at you very differently. And I love what it's done for my confidence and just feeling kind of like a badass and feeling like don't fuck with me. And hope, I think that people can see that. Except there's one really funny thing I want to tell you that I mentioned this to someone the other day. There's this incredible misconception that bodybuilders for some reason are also training MMA. Because I get this thing where they'll look at me and they'll go, I bet you can kick my ass. And I go, I don't train. So probably not. But just because I have a muscles does not mean I know how to throw a jab. Yeah. And I think that actually led me, I ended up training at 10th Planet with Eddie Bravo for a little bit.
Oh, no.
And next up, I want to get into boxing. Okay. Because I actually do want to kind of use these muscles in a more functional way. But yeah, as of right now, I can't kick anyone's ass, and no bodybuilder can because we're sore and we're tired.
Yeah, it's an interesting point that we see a lot of the bodybuilders where they beef, right? Now, I am a fan of bodybuilding in a way, but I also detest it because I know how unhealthy it is. But so I follow the general, like Nick's Strength and Power, let's say, or like Leo and Longevity is a buddy of mine, and just some of the other, like Flex Lewis, a buddy of mine, just these other dudes. So I'm kind of like, I get it, I dig it. So I'm exposed to the bodybuilding drama, right?
Oh, I stay out of it.
And it's like, oh, this guy, they're gonna like kick each other's ass. No, they're not.
No, they're not.
That'd be it'd be like Mothra versus Godzilla, like, but in the old school 1960s film version where it's just like two idiots falling down on top of each other. Background.
Throw in a 5'4", 160-pound jiu-jitsu practitioner, and those guys are going down.
Done. That's funny. Yeah, it's true.
That's why I love jiu-jitsu, because you can just be tiny and mighty. I think it's so cool.
So are there any jiu-jitsu or martial arts schools up in your area? And you're upstate New York, right?
Yeah, I'm in Buffalo, so it's technically more western.
Cold up there.
It is cold. It's cold. Yeah. It's snowing outside. So there are a couple of good spots. I've only trained jiu-jitsu at 10th Planet with Eddie and Donna Gonzalez, one of his chicks, who's just great. That was in LA. And then around right when I moved to New York was when I figured out these back issues. So I've been kind of working through that, and I really want to get back into jiu-jitsu, but it just doesn't make sense. I don't have the mobility for it. I'm going to hurt myself. So I was thinking about something stand up.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's going to be the rotation that I'm going to have to be aware of, but taking some of the other things out of the equation, and just honestly, I want to learn how to throw a punch too. I've got a little bit of delt muscle. I feel like I could maybe have some power behind my punch, but I don't know. So I'm gonna there's the Buffalo Boxing Club that is owned by one of our friends, Joe Riverside, and I'm gonna go check that out. We have Lake Effect Martial Arts, which I hear is the best place to do jiu-jitsu around here, I've been talking with their owner as well, but I want to hold off on the back stuff. And I really don't want to be that person that goes to a jiu-jitsu class and goes, well, I have an injured back. I can't do that because of my back. I don't like to be that person.
Gotcha. Well, you're smart. Ease into it. Have fun. The martial arts, from my perspective, it's a lifelong pursuit. It's self-mastery more than anything else. You can get ultra aggressive and competitive with it because you want to beat the other person. But it's just about mastering yourself, your body. It's such a great pursuit. And the martial arts can be modified literally our entire lives. Like, especially jujitsu, like gi jujitsu can be done at this very slow, passive pace that is very, it will wreck you physically because it's just more like isometric holding and squeezing and body positioning, core work.
Of that. I love stability work. I love that. Like, what Steve Maxwell puts out there about all that. And he talks about older people who just can't get up off the ground and just, and how older people can even use, some of these lessons. Yeah.
Now, I want to jump in. We got some questions here. I want to jump in a couple of questions. So good. Thanks for everyone in the chat room right now before we kind of sign off. So Andrew says, what are your thoughts on salt baths with Abilene for weight cutting? Have you had any experience with this? We have here in the MMA world. It's kind of common.
No,
what about you?
That's going to be a Mike Dolce question. The weight cutting. So first of all, I don't have to cut weight because I compete in a division where no one knows what the weight is. There is no weight criteria. They don't weigh us before we go on stage. Yep. I do have to cut some body fat, but I don't have to cut the water out per se. I mean, of course, if I'm looking a little bit watery, I of course I want to pull that water off, but I don't really use many weight cutting. I certainly don't use the kinds of, methods that you guys use. And for the most part, I'm able to cruise into a show. In that last week, I'll be extremely prescriptive about my sodium and my water intake, but I don't cut either. I keep them just really consistent. And what my job is to do my prep for the show so well that when peak week comes around, that last week before a show, I'm just cruising. I don't have to do anything extreme. But it is a little bit different because I don't have to cut weight.
Gotcha. And do you use anything like diuretics, spironolactone, diazide, Lasix, anything like that to dry out at the end? Very common in the bodybuilding side.
Yeah, I have. I like aldactone. I like even just Expel, which you can get at like GNC or Vitamin Shop. It makes a little bit of a difference. Oftentimes we don't have to use them. And again, that's kind of the goal, is that we get lean enough, at least in bikini, is that we get lean enough that we don't have to fuck around with that. But things happen because, especially for women, we've got crazy hormonal fluctuations. And if I'm ovulating that week where I'm going to be competing, I'm going to have to cut water. It's just, I'm going to have to, I'll keep drinking my water, but I'm going to have to use probably aldactone.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Cody Baker says, do you use TB 500 or BPC 157?
Yes. I totally forgot. Oh my God, I forgot about BPC 157. I love it so much. And paired with TB 500, it's awesome. I have used BPC 157 for a torn intercostal, which is the little guys in between your ribs. I was on prep and tore it, and that really sucked. And just started shooting BPC into it. I'm a big fan of it. I have a lot of friends who have used it successfully. My fiance has used it and healed miraculously from certain tears, or post-surgery. Bringing in the TB 500 and the 157 is just like gives you like healing superpowers. Wow. Again, I'm going to say that with the caveat that we might not know everything about these, and that you want to be using it, at least relying on some sort of a professional, whether it's a coach or a doctor or something, to get the right dose and to know what you're doing.
How long did you typically, what is the normal dose, milligram maybe, and then just length of use? Your personal experience, not medical advice, of course.
Yeah, shoot. You know what? It's been a while since I used BPC. I'd have to check on the dose, but I'm typically, if I have an acute injury, I'm injecting it 2 to 3 times a day, and I got so much relief within about a week and a half or 2 weeks with that intercostal, with the BPC. It works fast. And then for some people who might have an actual, a big tear where they just had surgery, like something in their shoulders or their knees, they might have to use it a bit longer, but it's really prominent in powerlifting from what I've seen, and people have had really great success from it. And then of course, there's this whole other area where BPC is really great for your digestive health. And for people who have like extreme like IBS issues, I've heard about it just working wonders for them. So that's really exciting.
Yeah. And on that side, so you had mentioned earlier, Samorlin, you had used before. Are you using any of the other peptides? You kind of mentioned peptides, but we never really talked about them. Which peptides do you prefer? BPC, TB, which ones do you prefer right now, more on the cosmetic side?
Yeah. So I just, last year turned 35. So I have to start thinking about HGH, and at least just keeping it in the back of my mind that I'm not going to be producing as much growth hormone, and that's going to start to, really decline. And mid 30s is where we start to really talk about it and consider it, and where a lot of guys will get into this as well. I was talking with my coach and just various pieces of my biofeedback about recovery and injuries. She's like, I think we should probably discuss something. We don't have to, you don't have to jump all the way to HGH, but we can at least help to give you something that might help kind of produce more growth hormone, or as a precursor to growth hormone. And my coach really likes Samorlin for some of her clients that might be like in the 35, 45 range. Just makes you feel great, makes you heal a little bit faster, a little bit more energy. And then when I was working with Joanna at Hormone Logics, who runs my blood work, she actually wanted me to switch over to thymosin alpha.
Okay.
Sort of similar, but a bit more emphasis on immune health. And I've actually been running that for a bit. And I will say I was running it during like early COVID. And when COVID was just sweeping through and coming through my house, I was just like thriving.
Wow.
So could be something there. Who knows?
And did you notice?
I guess I can't do like COVID misinformation, right? Are they going to Rogan us?
I've already been Rogan, by the way.
Already been Rogan?
I don't have the audience size, so nobody really noticed nor cared.
Luckily, I'm still flying under the radar enough that I won't get Roganed, but hopefully, God.
I did notice I was put on a list recently because I am a past 2-time guest on his show. So I've been put on some sort of list. I got this weird pop-up on Twitter, like you've been added. And I looked at the person who added, and it was like a high level, I would not a Democrat, but a liberal operative that like added. I'm like, I'm on this list now. I'm like, all right, well, I'm like Bernie Sanders is on the list too. So to be fair, and Andrew Yang and whomever else. So
God, and I will say, by the way, I know that we've kind of everyone is talking about him right now, and a lot of people are kind of stroking his ego, and I don't really need to do that. But I will say that a lot of what has led me here is the fact that I started listening to him about 11 years ago.
Yeah.
And I was just getting into bodybuilding and I guess biohacking, although I didn't know it at the time, but listening to Rhonda Patrick, and so many amazing people that he's had on, and himself, and various fighters. I thought that there was a TJ Dillashaw episode a few years ago that was really interesting. He was getting into his food, and that podcast has been a huge influence in my success and in my health. And it's led me, to where I'm at now. It's the reason I have a sauna in my basement. It's the reason I do a lot of things, and his curiosity kind of mirrored my curiosity at the time. And I love that that's been the theme of his podcast for many years. It's just been curiosity. Let's check it out. I don't know, and that's why, like I said, we don't have to go too far down the Rogan road, but I will absolutely defend him, God, forever, because I've benefited so much from so much of the information he put out.
Agreed. And his podcast was Masterclass before Masterclass was a commodity, right? Before that was a digital platform where you could actually listen to Rogan and be exposed to some of the greatest minds in long form content where they can actually flesh out guys like in the early days, like Sam Harris, right? Guys like that.
I meditate. He's the reason why my brain is right now, is because, yeah, I heard Sam Harris and I got into waking up. Like,
Yep.
amazing.
It's interesting. And it's, it again, slightly off topic, but it is topical right now. It is free speech that people should be able to hear these things and then make their own decisions in conjunction with their doctor. If I hear something that's interesting, I'll do my own research and I'll go talk to my doctor and say, hey, doc, what about this? What do you think about, like, literally, like I was just sitting at a cardiologist last week and I was like, oh no, you're not kicking me out of here in 6 minutes. I got some questions. I want to start talking about cardiac health as someone who's extremely healthy, but long-term, I want to talk about lifestyle intervention. And what does this mean? And am I doing everything not good enough, but perfectly? Like, sit your ass back in the chair. I'm still here. Like, I want to have these conversations about prophylactic use of certain statin therapy, right? Or
for men.
For men, or what the hell else were we talking about? Or ezetimibe, or the EPA DHEA ratios. And there's a lot of science that shows is that the ratio of EPA and DHEA can have a positive or negative impact on long-term cardiovascular health.
Yeah.
Damn, doc, I want to have this conversation with you. And he was like, well, you got a lot of
a level of detail that most people don't.
Yeah. And it was just like, all right, this is the stuff that I've aggregated over time from intelligent people like that live at high level.
Yeah.
These are the conversations we're having in my peer group of other guys in their, late 30s to early 50s that were like, hey, man, we want to be running around in our 80s and 90s looking like dudes in their 50s are today. And we're proactive enough to be asking these questions and making the lifestyle modifications necessary to get there, whether that's Sarms, peptides, all the stuff that you're talking about, or the eventual HRT, TRT protocols. Like, there's so much there, plus natural holistic intervention. And I want to talk, because I know you want to speak about liver health and a little bit what you do with biohacking. We've gone long. So I want to kind of open the floor to you a little bit. You did mention liver health, which is very interesting. That what is your stance? What is your actual your function inside of maybe your own personal experience helping the liver, but also the biohacking that you're actively doing with your clients?
Yeah. So when I started to focus on my liver health was really when so many positive changes, both internally and externally, happened. After competing for a while, getting my pro card, doing a couple of pro shows, I had been pushing myself for a long time. I had been nonstop prepping for, like 2 years probably. I was just in the competition circuit trying to just get that momentum. You have to get in front of judges over and over again, show them that you're doing the work, show them the improvements. So it can be a really long stretch. I ended up with some hormonal imbalances, nothing too crazy. I had like estrogen dominance. Cortisol was doing all kinds of weird stuff. So I started to research the hormone issues I was dealing with. And after some time, I realized I started to see the word liver come up, and I didn't know how connected. Well, first of all, everything is connected. And that's what I learned. But I didn't realize that our liver health is connected to really, every function in our body, and really closely related to hormone health. And then I went, well, what's up with the liver? What can I do for my liver? I don't know. It's there. Like, I don't do anything for my liver.
Yep.
So then I realized that the liver is our filter, and we take in all kinds of toxins all day, from the air we breathe, water we drink, the food. And luckily, we actually have a filter, and it filters out the garbage for us. But just like if you were to take a filter out of your car, or like out of your AC unit or something, they get dirty. And we have to prioritize our liver health so that filter is actually properly working. And that's our detox process. We don't need to take detox pills or detox teas or whatever. We have a liver. But if we're not good to our liver, or if we don't at least keep liver health in the back of our mind, it might not be functioning properly. So I started just really, really simple stuff. Supplements, some lifestyle habits, some product swaps, like some beauty products, like detergents and, some of those products where I'm putting toxins in my body and I'm really just loading myself up with toxins.
Yep.
I basically said, I'm going to try to go easier on my liver. I'm going to pull out some of the toxins and I'm going to give it some of the supplements, like basic shit like milk thistle and dandelion root, that are going to help support it and just let it do its job. And when I did that, also note castor oil packs I like for liver as well. That's something interesting for people to look into. And when I just made slight changes and just started thinking about my liver and just started thinking about what I was putting in my body, is it helping or hurting it? That actually had a huge impact on how I felt and how I looked too. I actually started tightening up a whole lot around the same time that I was actually soon after my liver phase, where I kind of got into liver health, was when I realized how important fiber is. Fiber is something that is not generally promoted in bodybuilding. People don't really talk about it. Sure. I'm talking about it. I don't know if people care, but I'll talk about it all day, because fiber has been possibly the biggest game changer of the past few years for me. And again, simple. I get it from simple sources. No pills, no powders, no psyllium husk or whatever that shit. I just eat, like you said, lentils, beans, cruciferous veggies. Yep. I love like edamame, avocado. And the more fiber I took in from good sources, that's important. It's not Quest bars. The more fiber I took in, meals like this, Brussels sprouts, I started to tighten up and drop so much weight that my coach was like, I'm just going to keep giving you more carbs. And a lot of those carbs, if I'm eating 200 grams of carbs a day, a lot of those carbs are coming from high fiber veggies. So right here, you're going to see we have broccoli, Japanese sweet potato, chickpeas, kale. There's a lot of fiber here. So I try to be mindful of my carb sources and how much fiber they're giving me. And I try to stay in the mid 30s to mid 40s range per day in terms of grams per day. And the truth is that fiber makes our body work harder. There is a thermogenic effect of food. And when we're eating, there's a big difference between eating a donut and eating that meal right there. And the thermogenic effect of how hard our body has to work to break it down. So essentially what it seems like, if I could really simplify it, is that my body had to work harder to break down some of these foods. There was a better, thermogenic effect, and I'm able to actually eat more because I'm giving myself quality carbs. I love, I forgot about the nice chickpea pastas are awesome. I love my oats. This is a good example of a meal prep that I'll do. I'll make a ton of the chickpea pasta. I've actually moved away from Banza because it has xanthan gum in it, and I'm not a huge fan. So I've been using the chickpea pastas that only have chickpeas as the ingredients. There are several brands. But that's a good example of a meal prep. What you're seeing in the middle there is like a ratatouille that I made. I love to just throw a ton of veggies into a big pot, some tomatoes. They're all relatively low carb veggies, so it's easy to track. I can just track it all as like broccoli or whatever, even if I need to track it. That's kind of a good example of a meal prep for me. Fiber is amazing. And up until just recently, I thought the fiber was something that only old people talked about. Like, you get your Metamucil or whatever, you got to take your fiber powder. Sure. I thought it was like something for grandparents, but I'm so into fiber now, and it keeps me looking tight, feeling great. My digestion's on point. My hormones are on point. Skin, God, I had horrible skin when I was a high schooler. And it's so cool to hear people now say like, oh, your skin looks so good. I'm like, yes, like it's paying off,
It's interesting that you say that, in that we prescribe fiber as if it was a macro, that we consider fiber to be a macro. So people don't forget. So protein, carbs, fiber, and fats. There's and many in the mixed martial arts world, because of weight cutting, they exclude fiber during the peaking phase. And this is for those listening, because they're worried about water. We actually increase fiber while cutting weight because it improves digestive efficiency. And we understand that, yes, the fiber will actually, bind with water, but you pass it. You will eliminate it.
Yeah.
It doesn't stick. It doesn't stay. It's not sticky. It actually is transient, where it will move through. And I will say this as the only team with a 100% success ratio on the scale. Part of that is because we increase fiber intake during the acute weight loss, weight cutting, water cutting phase.
Cool.
And it allows our athletes to eat more high net nutrient foods because these foods are passing through the body in a more efficient manner.
And they're satisfied too. They're full. When you're getting your fiber, you're actually feeling satisfied. So you don't need to go and reach for that cookie, or you're not going to be as tempted. My cravings went away, honestly, pretty much completely away. And I started to really just enjoy the foods, like what we were looking at on my page, just kale. Like I started to just enjoy it. Your taste buds are adaptable, and you can train your taste buds like you can train a muscle. Yeah. So that's also one of the things I'll do. And I'm going from off season to prepping. Although for the most part, my food, even in the off season, is pretty optimized. I will go extremely clean in the beginning, and I will pull out everything that's hyper palatable. Yeah. And I'll basically train my taste buds. It takes about a week, and I train them. Hey, we're working. Food is fuel. Food is not entertainment. Food is not a reward. Food is fuel. And so when I make that switch and I just go real plain foods for a while, the cravings are gone. And then I'm just craving my veggies and my oats.
That's genius right there. Very astute, and often not practiced by most who compete. They immediately go for the hyperpalatable foods. And what does that do? It then trains their taste buds the other way to only crave those hyperpalatable foods.
Yeah. And we see this post-competition in bodybuilding. We see these binges. We see people going just on food benders because they've been restricting themselves. We see cookie companies that are actually advertising as like a post-competition treat. For me, that's the time. That's the most important time to not get back into hyperpalatable foods, because I just got off stage. My metabolism is already compromised. My hormones are compromised. I'm already kind of like in a different headspace, and it's not the time to be just giving myself those foods and derailing, where I'm at. So I try to just really ease very gradually into the off season, not go crazy with the cookies. I really don't think that we should be promoting stuff like that for people who are in a compromised spot in terms of their health. We've seen people put on up to 30 pounds in the week after a show. Like I'm sure you've seen it with these bodybuilder guys. The guys can put on weight after a show.
Nick Trigili, Nick, he's a Jersey guy.
I know the name. Yeah.
He won the NPC USAs. He's a buddy of mine. Mm-hmm. He actually on this podcast told the story. I think it was after he won Junior USAs or Junior Nationals. He was hospitalized. He put on over 60 pounds in a week. And they thought his heart was going to shut down. Kidneys, heart, everything. He was in the hospital for a period of time. Really, horrific story, because after competition, and he's honest about the drugs he was taking, an interplay of the drugs created just this perfect storm of danger. And then the foods he was eating, which is he went into the hyperpalatable, gorge yourself. And, I forget specifically what he was eating, but to your point, and his body just blew up. And that's the scary thing. After you come out of an acute weight loss, whether it's for competition or people at work just do a weight loss for their job and, all that stuff. And then they celebrate. And that celebration typically never ends, right? That one meal, pizza and wings and beer, turns into brunch the next day, turns into sandwiches and chips for lunch, turns into, another shitty meal for dinner. And then all of a sudden, they're just back into being that old version of themselves. And you see that swing, which is why reverse dieting, the concept of reverse dieting, is so important.
So important, but important to do it right. Yeah. Yeah. To actually do it. I tell people to treat the off season just as, if not more seriously, as they treat their prep, because so much can go wrong or very right in the off season. But the off season is when we put in all the work. That's when we do all the training. That's when I tell people that I like to use car analogies for all this shit. when you build a hot rod, and then you want to just take the cover off and take it for a spin. When we cut for a show, we're just taking the cover off. The work is already done. We already built the hot rod. So the off season is really when all the work is put in, and when I think you should be just as prescriptive about your food. A little bit of balance, of course, we want to incorporate, but I think it needs to be taken a bit more seriously.
Yeah, that's a great point. Good analogy. That actually works real well. Well, Hannah, I really appreciate you being here. We're almost 2 hours deep into this. Thank you.
Awesome. That happened fast.
Which is why Rogan does 3 hours, and maybe next time we'll get you back on.
Sure.
For more, but taking up so much of your time right now. You are absolutely awesome. I appreciate you being here. Keep doing what you're doing, spreading the health and fitness knowledge that many of the individuals, in your world, the aspirational females, they need to listen, they need to hear, and hopefully they need to book you for consultations and services so you can walk that journey with them and really help them get on stage in their very best, or just let them look their very best in their life, because not everybody wants to get on stage, but you should be able to look like you can, right? That's a very important thing. Where can everyone find you, reach you? Obviously, your Twitter handle is right down there below. Everybody can see.
Yeah, so that's my Instagram. I'm not on Twitter.
Instagram, sorry, I meant that.
Because I want to maintain my sanity. So I have never gotten on Twitter.
So smart. So smart.
I'm not on there yet, but really just Instagram, Hana_Devore. My email is hana@fitbodyfusion.com if anyone has any questions, or you're welcome to, message me on Instagram.
Awesome. Well, Hana, thank you once again. You are amazing, and we'll be chatting soon. I really appreciate you.
Thanks. I'll talk soon.
Of course. All right, everybody. There we go. Thank you all for being here, and until next time, boom.